So the fifth thing that you need to know before you get into cybersecurity is that there are more than just network penetration testing jobs. Big surprise. I don't know if you knew that. If you're listening to this episode right now and you're like, "Yeah, I want to be a pen tester because, that was what, the movie that I watch or whatever, the television show that I watch and that's kind of, mostly what you've been exposed to." Well, there's way more jobs than that. And then by the way, Hollywood also kind of lies to us sometimes. Pen test jobs are like 95% sheer boredom and 5% sheer thrills. But that it doesn't change that much percentage wise because there's a lot of time you're going to spend just bashing your head against a digital wall trying to figure out how to get in, and every now and then you'll find something nobody else has found before. It's going to be super cool, but the point is that there's a lot of other jobs out there that you should be considering, right, Jason?
Yeah, most definitely, right? I mean, I get this all the time when people ask me, should they go to CYSA Plus, which is cybersecurity analyst, which is what SOC analysts get, versus Pen Test Plus, which is pen testing. And pen testing is cool, it's sexy, it's what you see in the movies, it's the guy behind the keyboard hacking in and doing all sorts of cool stuff, right?
With a
But
hoodie.
the reality is there's 4 times as many security defense jobs as a SOC analyst than there are as pen testers. So there's a lot more jobs and job opportunity on the defense side than there are on the red team or the attack side. The other
Right.
thing is, if you're working in some place that's a high emulation environment, for instance, you're working for a red team for a bank or the government, and you're trying to emulate a Russian attacker or a Chinese attacker or whatever, some kind of high level APT, that is probably the most boring job as a pen tester because you're sitting there and you're doing 90 hours of research to get your attack just so lined up so you could press the button and it'll be over in 30 seconds and they'll never see you coming, right? That's when you're trying to be an advanced state, nation state type hacker or a pen tester at that level of doing adversary emulation. It is really boring because it's so much research. And then the other side, if you're doing this for a commercial environment, most of the time you're spending your time doing the report after the engagement. And so
Yeah.
if you don't like report writing and writing out all these long reports and presenting them to the audience, pen testing is not going to be for you. What are some good jobs outside of pen testing that you see, Kim?
Oh my gosh. Well, there are actually way too many for us to cover here, but I'll name a couple, and then I'm going to point you to an episode that began a whole series of episodes that we did. But there are gosh, you could specialize in vulnerability management, for example, right? You could be somebody who goes out and scans systems looking for systems missing patches, systems that are not configured correctly, and that's a hugely important job. There's actually quite a bit of those types of jobs out there, vulnerability analyst, and I try to encourage people who are just breaking in to cybersecurity to get good at that job, because not only are there a lot of those jobs out there, but that's one of the few jobs that you can actually practice for really well in your home laboratory environment because you have everything you need. The only thing that I think might be a little difficult to emulate is some kind of a like enterprise patch management solution or something like that. But you definitely have all the scanning tools. You can get virtual machines for all your scanning targets. You can learn how to analyze the reports. And as I said, there's a lot of need for that. But anyway, that's top of mind for me. Do you have one that's top of mind for you?
So one of my favorite is actually malware analyst. It's a lot of fun if you like to be a kind of a code geek. You can go in and reverse engineer code. You can look at the binaries. You're trying to undo what the bad guy did to try to obfuscate the malware. And I just find that to be a lot of fun. And it's one of those things that it takes a higher skill set. So there's less people competing for those roles. And so if you can
Yeah.
prove to me that you can do that because you've experienced working on something like the Metasploit project or something like that, doing some of that volunteering, that would be able to get you into the door pretty easily because there's not nearly as much competition for those roles because it does require a lot of skill and a lot of
Right.
programming background. So that's another
Right.
one. IT auditor is another one I see a lot. People coming in from a management position or a accounting background, they can move into an IT auditor background and they can work if you're really good with checklists and procedures. That's another good one inside of the way to kind of step your way into the role. And I know you mentioned the episode. It's episode 31, and it's called All the Jobs in a Large Cybersecurity Organization. This was about a 10 to 15 part series. This was the first one is the overview, it kind of lists out all the jobs. And then each episode after that goes into one of those jobs and does a deep dive into it. So you know what's required, what it's like, and what it's like to be in that type of role on a daily basis.
Yeah, I think you should check that out. And we tried to make every episode in that series self-contained. There's actually a placemat. Well, we call it a placemat, but it's just sort of like an overview of the different services and the different teams in a typical large organization, cybersecurity org. Also in every one of those episodes, we invited a guest, somebody who has a significant amount of work experience in those areas that we reviewed. And so, if you want to hear from a person who works in, for example, cybersecurity architecture, well, we have somebody in that episode who can tell you what it was actually like for them, how they got into it, how they got started, how did they move up in their career. So, tons of value packed into each of the episodes in that series. So, okay.